Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Magic Society. My name is Kaylina, and I am your cryptozoologist today. And if you don't know what that means, since it is the season of spooky season and everything weird and mysterious, I've decided that I'd like to make a video on cryptids today. So, let's get started. So, if you're not familiar what a cryptid is, this is the definition. So they are considered animals that cryptozoologists believe may exist somewhere in the wild, but whose presence and existence is disputed or unsubstantiated by science. So it's considered a pseudoscience, and which primarily looks at anecdotal stories and other claims rejected by the scientific community. So, I am by no means a cryptid expert. I know there are some people out there that are like obsessed with it, and they could probably talk about this way better than I could. But what I didn't know, and maybe this is common knowledge, it probably is, but I actually have a couple coworkers at work who are really interested in cryptids. And so that's kind of how I got onto the idea for this video. What I didn't realize is that literally every state has a cryptid that is associated with the state, which I didn't know. I've heard of some of them, like Mothman and Bigfoot, you know, the common ones that everyone has heard of, but some of these I didn't even know existed. So, if you, like me, don't know a ton about them, let's learn about them together today. So at some point I will do all 50 states. I think I'll do the first 25 in this video and then do the other 25 in the next video. But we're just going to go through each state and like what cryptid is associated with each state. And I'll show you pictures and stuff so you don't have to listen to my voice drone on and on and on and on. So let's get right into it. First you have Alabama, and their cryptid is called the White Thing. And so the other thing that I'm going to mention is that some of these cryptids are very similar in nature. So if you could guess the two most popular ones that you're probably gonna hear of the most in a similar way, if you say Bigfoot and anything resembling the Loch Ness Monster, you would be correct. Those two are associated with a lot of different states. So there's either very similar species of this cryptid running around, or it's the same thing and it just shows up in many different places. Those two are definitely the most common. However, there are some in here that I had never heard of before. So, Alabama's is the White Thing, and it is a Bigfoot in a way. It stands 8 feet tall. It's covered in white hair. Others says it looks like a giant white lion. And then even still, some say it's a kangaroo type creature with a cat-like head, which is interesting. It's known to move very quickly. It stands on 2 legs, but it runs on all 4s. There's always a smell of dead animals that is associated with the creature, and its scream sounds very much like a woman. It's been known in folklore since the early 1900s and can be seen in the Triangle of Morgan, Etowah, and Jefferson counties. There are also sightings reported in Walnut Grove, Moody's Chapel, Happy Hollow, and Wheeler Wildlife Refuge. This is going to be a long video if I can't speak. Okay, so next you have Alaska. And if I butcher any of these names, I am really sorry, but it's probably going to happen. Because this one is the Tizahurk, and it's found around Key Island, Alaska. This mysterious sea serpent has been by the Inuit culture, who has reportedly seen the monster-like creature snatch people from the piers. There's a slight debate on what the thing actually looks like, but most agree it's a serpent with a head around 7 feet long, estimated to be only 15 feet in total. Some say it has a fish tail, while others think it's more of a flipper, while others think it has more of a seal-like head. Any other history is somewhat vague. Next you have Arizona, and this is the Mogollon monster. This is another one similar to Bigfoot. This is described as a large, hairy, ape-like creature that stands 7 to 10 feet tall. People say that right before encountering the creature, there is an indescribable sense of silence that is very unsettling. Like the white thing, it's accompanied with the smell of dead fish, or what people describe as decaying peat moss. So, needless to say, not going to be your next Yankee Candle scent. It's been known to inhabit the Mogollon Rim, which is where its name derives from. Its appearance is hairless around the face, but with a body full of thick reddish-brown hair. Leaves footprints of 22 inches with a large stride. One of the earliest records of this creature was by a tourist of the name I.W. Stevens. So next you have the Arkansas Fook monster, also known as the Boggy Creek monster. It is said to roam the networks of creeks extending from the Sulphur River bottoms in the southern part of Arkansas to the small town of Folk. This creature resembles a Sasquatch, so another species of Bigfoot. People in this area want you to know they are not crazy, as they state that the creature has been seen by respected citizens. This includes experienced hunters, famous musicians, and even a police officer. So see, nobody is crazy there. Many movies have been made about this creature, but the most famous is The Legend of the Boggy Creek, which net $25 million during its first run. So next you have California, which is the Tahoe Tessie. So if you guessed it's related to cousin of the Loch Ness Monster, you would probably be correct. It's also, what was I writing here? Not only is Tahoe home to the cousin of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, but this lake is also known to many as the graveyard, as this was a dumping ground for victims of the mob back in the 1920s and the 1950s. So I don't know which one is worse, seeing the cousin to the Loch Ness Monster or falling into the water with a bunch of dead people. Kind of creepy. So there's a story that goes, there was a fisherman out on a boat. He was reeling in his catch for the day, and as he was pulling up the fish hook, he caught a fully intact ear, which is absolutely disgusting. No, absolutely not. So yeah, the locals state that Tessie comes around June of every even-numbered year. Creepier still, a famous oceanographer in the mid-1970s by the name of Jacques Cousteau brought a mini submarine to the lake for an exploration. When he surfaced, he was quoted to say, "The world isn't ready for what is down there." So to his death day, he never told anybody what he saw down there, which is slightly terrifying because that means there was obviously something that kind of scarred even him. So next you have Colorado, and this is a slide rock boulder. Now this one I find really kind of funny and maybe a little illogical, just because this represents like a giant dolphin type fish with a hook tail, and the story goes that it clenches onto the cliffs of the mountains, waits for people to pass by, lets go, slides down with his giant mouth, and then gobbles people up. So yeah, it's got a hook at the end of its flipper. It was also the size of an entire hillside. So that would be mighty hard to miss, you would think. So I'm kind of surprised there aren't more sightings of this rockfish since it is so huge. This creature's leisurely pleasures, like I said, include sliding down deep slopes while eating entire groups of people. Many today tend to lean that it was a supernatural way of describing a very natural phenomenon of rock slides or avalanches. Tales say at one point a forest ranger actually devised a fake trap to catch said monster by putting fake dummies in an area with explosives and to lure the creature in to the trap. The explosion flattened half the buildings in Rico, which were never rebuilt. So, Connecticut, you have your melon heads, and so don't find yourself on a secluded dirt road in New Haven and Fairfield countries, as this is where you may encounter these small humanoid figures with big heads. These figures have also been seen in Michigan and Ohio as well. They hide in between trees and wait to attack. The New England Historical Society used these creatures as an explanation for runaway teens and missing hikers that became deformed people who survived by consuming small animals, stray cats, and even human flesh. Unfortunately, there is another theory, which is more of a racial derogatory term for the Malushian people who lived in Appalachia. This was a group of European outcasts, free slaves, and Native Americans that kept to themselves. Sadly, there was a lot of prejudice surrounding the people of New York who moved into the suburbs and came into contact with isolated rural folk. Other theories include a family being accused of witchcraft, banished to the wilderness where they inbred to survive, while others think the Melonheads are escapees of the Fairfield Hills Hospital, a now abandoned mental institution. So there's a lot of stipulation on that one. Next you have Delaware, which is the Zawandeel Merman. And I'm so sorry if I probably really am butchering some of this, and I really apologize for that. But this merman type skeletal figure is actually displayed in the Zawandeel Museum, and it is a humanoid fish-like skeleton of the Fiji merman. And there's actually two of them. They're not both in that museum. One's in that museum, there's another one in a different museum. But this is a mummified foot-long creature, and it was given to the Lewis family by a sea captain. Kids call him the monkey fish, and he does kind of look like a monkey's head with a fish body. It's kind of unusual. When alive, they say it moves quickly and has glowing green eyes. First report was by Dutch settlers in 1632. The most recent was in 2000 by a kayaker reportedly seeing it swimming in the bay by its kayak. So Florida. Oh, Florida. How I love Florida. So Florida literally has a creature called the skunk ape. And this is very similar to Bigfoot as well. No offense, Florida. Of course you would have something called the skunk ape. If in doubt, that would be the state to have it. The funny thing is that Florida actually has an official skunk ape headquarters with an address and everything. So instead of bird watching, like most people would probably do, I wonder if Florida has a society for skunk ape searching. Would it surprise you? It would not surprise me. No offense to Floridians. I love Florida. I do. It's just, I just found it funny. Supposedly the most chilling pictures is one a family took and sent to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office on December 22nd of 2000. They awoke to loud noises on their patio, and when they took the picture, they figured a monkey had escaped from the zoo. However, the internet had other thoughts. I have to admit, the picture that I will show you is pretty unsettling. Like, it definitely looks like a creature that is unworldly. So next you have Georgia, and they have the Altamaha, and this is an alleged sea monster that lives in the myriad small streams and abandoned rice fields near the mouth of the Altamaha River. The story originates from the lower Muskogee Creek tribe. The monster's nickname is Alti. There have been many reports of a strange hissing sound and an oddly shaped figure lurking in these waters. Within these waters, you can also find at least 130 different species of rare or seriously endangered plants and animals. This also includes 7 different species of freshwater mussels found nowhere else in the world, which is just kind of a cool fun fact. This definitely resembles more of a prehistoric dinosaur, which begs the question, if there are so many similar creatures seen throughout the world, is it possible that the dinosaurs, some of those sea dinosaurs, survived the asteroid? You gotta wonder. So Hawaii, I really like Hawaii. It sounds very interesting. And they're called the Menehune. I think that's how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So it's a really neat legend of a mysterious group of small dwarf-like people who live hidden in the forests and valleys of the islands before the first settlers came to Polynesia. These people took to the forest at night and were only 2 feet tall. Some were as small as 6 inches. They enjoyed dancing, singing, archery, and ate bananas and fish. They were quite handy, they were excellent craftsmen, and were good at engineering and overnight construction. They had magic arrows in a sense, kind of like Cupid, so they were able to turn the coldest heart into a loving and kind one. They were very smart, very strong, and have rarely been seen by human eyes. They are said to have built the Alekoko fish pond on Kauai, as well as Keakola, also known as the Mehuni Ditch. There's also a story specifically involving 3 different Mehuni, and each one had a different power and their name was associated with their talent. So look that up if you're interested in some more stories about those creatures. Next you have Idaho, and so Idaho has Charlie. In McCall, Idaho, Charlie is the resident lake monster. Again, kind of like our other sea monsters that we have already talked about. This lake monster is found in Big Payette Lake that was named after Francois Payette, who was a French-Canadian fur trapper in the 19th century. The lake has over 5,000 glacier-carved acres, and its deepest point is 392 feet deep. The monster originally was called Slimy Slim, but the locals decided it needed a better name. Looks similar to all the other lake monsters with the dinosaur-like head, humps like a camel, and skin like shells. Indiana, you have your beast of Busco, and it was first seen in 1949. This beast is a giant snapping turtle. So, at one point there is a month-long hunt, but alas, the turtle was never found. They named the turtle Oscar after the farmer who first saw it living on his 7-acre lake on his farm near Churubusco. The rumor mill spreading, and soon other citizens were seeing this 500-pound turtle. The town went as far as draining and motorboating the lake in an attempt to get the turtle out, but obviously nothing ever came out of it because this mysterious turtle was never found. There's a Turtle Days festival celebrated each June that includes a parade, a carnival, and turtle races. Oscar is also celebrated at this event. So Illinois, the Enfield Horror, and not to be confused by like the Enfield paranormal situation that happened too. So one of the first people to see it was Henry McDaniel in 1973. After returning home with his wife, their 2 kids, Lil and Henry, recounted a tale of how something was scratching at their door. Henry encountered the same scratching later on that night, and when he went to open the door, he was met with an extremely strange creature. He said the thing had 3 legs, 2 short arms, 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights, and it stood 4.5 feet tall. It was grayish in color, and when he shot at it, it hissed and bounded away in long leaps. The footprints found later by the police indicated 6 toes instead of 4, and the print by the 3rd foot was smaller than the other 2. Earlier that evening, there had been another report of a child being attacked by something with talons and claws. To me, the pictures kind of resemble the Wednesday Addams monster, which I know that is based on like a specific creature, but it kind of reminded me of that. So Iowa, you have your Van Meter monster, and that was in 1903. The town received a visit from a half-man, half-bat-like creature that emerged from an old coal mine. It was an 8-foot-long winged creature with a forehead horn that cast a beam of light. As with most stories, this creature moved quickly and brought along a stench with it. Many shots were fired at this thing during its visit, but it apparently was unfazed by bullets. One person said it hopped like a kangaroo. At one point, the creature was joined by a second, smaller version of itself, and soon it descended into the mines, never to be seen again. Kansas, which is where I live, we have a cryptid called Sinkhole Sam, and this is a giant worm, or some people think it is a giant snake, that lives in the Inman Lake, also known as the Sinkhole. People believe that Sam is prehistoric and that he has lived in the flooded underground caverns that somehow led to the lake. 2 fishermen were the first to see the creature. They said it was about 15 feet in length and as round as an automobile tire. Some say it's more like a large snake with a fluted tail and a fin on its back. Some people even said that it has kind of like a grin that it wears, which is kind of creepy. The creature has not been seen in years, so some wonder if it has died. However, other cryptids such as Mothman, Bigfoot, and a mysterious figure in a trench coat has also been seen around the Kingman Lake. From pictures that I've seen, he kind of looks like the Beetlejuice snake in a way. So yeah, you will not find me wandering around that area at night because I do not want to see Mothman or a mysterious figure in a trench coat. I'm good. Next you have Kentucky, and so Kentucky has the Kelly Little Greenman, and apparently this was quite an account. On the night of August 21st, 1955, the Suttons, an extended farm family, arrived at the Hopkinsville police station in an absolute frenzy. They were sieged by otherworldly beings, they quoted, and this was a very detailed and crazy account. Numerous people saw it. The encounter lasted for hours, and it's one of the most accurate and detailed probably on record ever. Not only did it have a large number of witnesses, the duration lasted several hours, and the proximity between the witnesses and the creatures were sometimes mere feet away. This was not only regional news, but also national news as well. Sorry, my dog is choking in the background. Are you okay, baby? You okay? Okay, I think we're good. She does that sometimes. Also, the description of the creatures were extremely highly detailed. About 7 p.m. that night, a family friend was getting water from the backyard when he saw a silvery object with exhaust of the colors of the rainbow. It hovered and then dropped to the ground. The creatures seemed to be bulletproof. And there was a whole ordeal where they were fighting off these creatures, trying to shoot at these creatures, and I guess they looked like kind of what you picture your regular aliens to be. Next you have Louisiana, which I like theirs just because I think it's super fun to say. It's the Rougarou, and this is a monster from Cajun folklore. It's a werewolf type entity with the body of a man and a head of a wolf or a dog. It prowls looking for misbehaving children. That just sounds like a story parents tell their kids so that they don't stay out after curfew. It comes from the French word loup-gar, which means wolf, werewolf. It's not clear whether they only appear on full moons, even though the speculation is that they kind of do. But their preferred haunts are the swamps of central and eastern Louisiana. Like many other fear tactics, the French Catholics also used this as a form to scare people into doing what they were told, such as following the rules of Lent for 7 consecutive years. And as well, as I said, scaring small children into listening to their parents. So next time you don't follow Lent, you're turning into a werewolf. Just so you know. So Maine's is interesting. So they have what's called a specter moose. So like a ghostly moose, a giant, glowing, ghostly white moose. It was first seen in 1891 by a hunting guide by the name of Clarence Duffy while working around Lobster Lake. It's apparently just a really big moose that is apparently resistant to bullets because several hunters have tried to take this moose down to no avail. And this great moose has 22 points on its antlers, while the average moose has about 8 to 12. This moose stands 10 to 15 feet tall and averages around 2,500 pounds. That is a massive moose. Its antlers stand 10 to 12 feet across. The moose is said to have a glow to it and can simply disappear and walk through solid objects. Also, side note, please note that moose actually are pretty dangerous creatures on their own. Whether it's a ghost moose or not, please do not go messing around with moose. There have been deaths related to moose, and like deaths related to just someone riding their bike across a path where a moose happened to be and like got mauled and killed. So please be careful with moose, and especially around baby moose, because even if it seems alone, its mama is close nearby and it will attack you, and it will not be a good way to go. So please, that's just my side note. Please be careful with moose. They are not friendly. And this is also not to be confused by Harry Potter's Patronus. So steer clear of the specter moose, because it's also been known to attack people, which rightfully so. If someone was shooting at me, I probably wouldn't be the happiest camper either. Next you have Maryland, and you have Chessie, which is also similar to other water snakes and Loch Ness type monsters. However, the scientific community around this area has actually at least acknowledged the potential existence of something of a sea monster type entity. They're not like 100% on board, but they're not 100% discounting it either. But they said it looks like a prehistoric eel that breathes like a whale. The last known sighting was in 2014. Bo Few was sure that in 1982 he was the first to catch the video of this mystical water creature. Next you have Massachusetts, which I was just in Massachusetts, as you might have seen from my last video. And no, we did not see the Dover Demon, which is their cryptid that has been well known to be around that area. So it's been seen on 3 separate occasions on April 21st and 22nd of 1977. Believe it or not, there are actual cryptozoologists, which I said at the beginning of the video, which I did not know that was actually like a thing, but that's kind of freaking cool. Can you imagine? You're not just a zoologist, you're like a mythical creature zoologist. I mean, that's really freaking cool. Lauren Coleman was the first to investigate and the person to name the Dover Demon. The creature is said to have a huge head and glowing orange eyes like marbles. It had long, slender arms and legs. It was hairless and had rough, fleshy toned skin. There is no nose or ears, and there wasn't even a mouth to be seen. It was believed it could turn invisible if it wanted to, but then hid in the woods during the day. Others said that it had green eyes with grayish skin. However, the rest of the description with the no ears, mouth, nose, all of that was always matched up. So somehow it could change its eye color, I suppose. So your next one is Michigan, and this one is the Michigan Dogman. It's very similar to, it sounds exactly how it sounds. It's a 7-foot monster with a dog's head and a man's torso. It has blue or amber eyes with a howl that resembled a human scream. In 1887 was the first sighting in Wexford County. A couple of lumberjacks saw it when they were working. And I have to say, why is it always the lumberjacks or the fishermen or the farmers? Those seem to be the 3 groups of people I do not want to be, because without doubt, it's always been the lumberjacks, the fishermen, or the farmers that always come in contact with these creatures and who see all this crazy shit. No, thank you. There has been a song made up of the Michigan Dogman, as well as a couple different movies about it as well. Next you have Minnesota, which is the Wendigo. If you've seen Supernatural, I think it's like the second episode, they, I think, fight a Wendigo. Love Supernatural, and that's probably actually how I've heard about some of this stuff, is because they do kind of go into mythology and legends of different creatures and stuff. And so whether you're a hardcore fan or not, I do like the myth and legends, and let's face it, Jensen Ackles is my boy. So anyway, the Wendigo, I don't know how you say that. I'm saying it wrong, I think. But it is an evil spirit that devours mankind. And there are kind of two theories about it. One is that it is a person that turns into this monster if they've become a cannibal of any sort. And there's another theory that it is some kind of evil spirit that comes trying to look like a humanoid form, but is very skeletal in nature and really creepy. Yeah. Nonetheless, this is not something you'd want to run into at a camp out in the woods. These beings are strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. They are said to be cursed, forever wandering the earth, seeking to fulfill their never-ending appetite for human flesh. How delightful. If they don't get it, they starve to death and die. There are a variety of descriptions, but all can agree they're giant-like and are great hunters. To some degree, they're skeletal and very gaunt and with like sunken-in eyes. A lot of the pictures I found also showed them with like horns or antler-type things. So yeah, definitely not something I would want to run into. Then you have Mississippi, which is the Pascagoula River aliens. This is also a pretty well-known account that was documented, and it was said that two men, Charles Hickinson and Calvin Parker Jr., were allegedly abducted by aliens. They were out fishing, of course, out on the river, Pascagoula River, where they had just been hanging out. It was nighttime. They didn't want to go home. They were still out fishing. And all of a sudden they heard this zipping sound. They turned to see a 30-foot long object with a dome on the top. And then I guess 3 figures came floating out. And then they were taken by pincher claws. And they were subjected to a physical examination. As with all alien stories, poking and prodding always just goes with the territory apparently. And they said that there was something that looked like a big giant eye that was mechanical, and it kept making mechanical buzzing noises the whole time. And then they were simply just dropped right back off where they were first found. And obviously from there they went to the police station. The police officers tried to debunk what they said, and tried to say that they were drunk or, easily suggested. But even they could not trick these 2 guys into telling the truth. So maybe it really did happen. I don't know. And lastly, Missouri, you have Momo, which is kind of like a Bigfoot Sasquatch type mix. He's got a large pumpkin-shaped head, covered head to toe with black fur. Smells bad, as with all of these creatures. Tracks were actually submitted to the Oklahoma City Zoo, and it was documented and said that it was tracks of an unknown primate species. So, pretty interesting. So, hey, that wasn't actually too bad. That only took 34 minutes. Hopefully you understood a word of what I was saying, because I was reading it kind of fast. But in the description below, which one do you think would be the most scary to see, the most scary to encounter? For sure, I would not want to see any of the demon type ones. Yeah, there's definitely some that I'd be like, no thanks, but yeah, which ones would you actually want to see and meet? I'll tell you what though, just a weird thing that I just thought of. So when I was little, I don't remember how little I was, probably maybe around 10-ish, there was this really weird phenomenon, and I still remember it to this day. It was the weirdest thing. It was in the very middle of the night, like probably 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, completely dark. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. Like, it was like this pink, reddish light, just like everywhere. And I still to this day cannot explain it. Like, it literally came out of nowhere, and it was out the window, and it was just, it like filled the area up. And it was very, very bizarre. Like, and it still to this day felt supernatural in a sense. And I still can't explain it because it wasn't like it was an eclipse or anything like that. I mean, dead of night, and then all of a sudden this whole sky was just like reddish pink. So I don't know, it's probably just some kind of natural phenomenon that I've never heard of. Or maybe it was an alien spacecraft flying overhead. I'm not really sure. I definitely did not get abducted, but it was weird. And I tried to describe it to my parents the next day, and they didn't really seem to have an answer for it either. So I don't know, you sciencey people, if you know what that could have been, please explain it to me, because to this day I still remember it, and I still just like wish I had an explanation. But anyway, that is all I have for us today. Next week I will do the other 25, and then we'll wrap up our cryptid talk. So stay spooky, stay curious, stay witchy. I will see you next time for another video. Bye!